tonight and joining us for our monthly board meeting. May I have a roll call, please?
Iannarino,
Here.
Border,
Here.
Kane,
Here.
Khan,
Here.
Smolka,
Here.
Shupai,
Here.
Wong.
Here.
The mission of School District 15 is to produce world-class learners by building a connected learning community. Dr. Thompson?
This evening, we have the pleasure of being led in the pledge by some students from Stuart R. Paddock Elementary School, and Principal Rachel Bland is going to come up and introduce them and tell us a little about them before they do that.
You guys have the pleasure of being on our very first live-streamed board meeting, which is so exciting.
That's pressure though.
President Shupai, Dr. Thompson, members of the Board of Education and Community, I am so excited to be here today with our student leadership group. They are going to introduce themselves and tell you what they do at Paddock School.
Hello, thank you for having us. We're the Allies from Paddock School. I am Chase Nelson and I'm in 5th grade. I'm Natalie Donkey and I'm in 6th grade. I'm Kate Morgan and I'm in 6th grade. I'm Orlando Jean and I'm in 6th grade. I'm Jen Hogan and I'm in 5th grade. I'm Sergio Moyal and I'm in 5th grade. I'm Sarah Ward and I'm in 5th grade. I'm Michelle Malcolm and I'm in 4th grade. I'm Janice Padale and I'm in 4th grade. I'm Jason Benitez and I'm in 4th grade. Our goal is to help our peers feel empowered to walk away from disrespectful behavior and to be allies to everyone. Could you please stand and join us for the pledge of allegiance?
Thank you, Paddock students. The Board of Education has got this really cool light-up pen for you. Thank you for coming down. Come on over here. Careful the wire there. Keep up the good work. Thanks for coming. Keep up the good work. Keep up the good work. Thank you for reading the pledge to this child. Thanks for coming. Good job. Thank you for coming today. Good job. Thank you. Good speaking. All right, we're going to move into my section. Before we really get going too much tonight, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that tomorrow is School Board Member Appreciation Day, and these 7 school board members up here were voted in and give up many hours throughout the year to govern the school district. They're leaving their families sometimes, missing family commitments, they're giving up some of their work hours, vacation times, and they do a fabulous job in leading the school district, and the commitment is significant. So I wanted to say thank you, board members. And June has a box of chocolates there for you, and we did give you also a light-up pen, just so you know. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Dr. Schnorr.
Hey, this evening we are pleased to be recognizing our 6th grade cross-country first place winners. This year the winners performed incredibly well on a glorious autumnal afternoon. On September 26th, they ran a mile during the 6th grade cross-country invitational meet at Rolling Meadows, North Sauk Park, and 447 runners competed. There were 6 races held. Boys and girls races for the Green Division schools, including Hunting Ridge, Lake Louise, Lincoln, Virginia Lake, and Paddock schools. Boys and girls races for the Yellow Division schools, which include Whiteley, Central Road, Pleasant Hill, Jane Addams, and Little Bend. And lastly, boys and girls races in the Blue Division schools, including Thomas Jefferson, Marion Jordan, Winston Elementary, Kimmel Hill, and Seaport schools. Supported by the intramural coaches, the students dedicated their time and energy and training to the race. As Theodore Roosevelt once said, with self-discipline, all things are possible. Many congratulations to the first place winners from each division, and now their coaches are going to
I'm David Silva from Hunting Ridge Elementary School, and this is Amy. And Amy ran a 6-minute and 12-second mile.
I'm Jennifer Musiani from Lincoln School, and this is Jacob, and Jacob ran a 6-minute mile.
I'm Dustin Sublick from Willow Bend School. This is Riley. She ran a 6-minute and 38-second mile.
Good evening, I'm Andrea Rodino. This is Fabian from Frank C. Whiteley, and he ran a 5-minute and 53-second mile.
Hello, I'm Sharon Rusk from Winston Campus Elementary, and I'm proud to recognize Mary Kate with a mile time of 6:21.
I'm Ryan Murrow from Graham Sanborn, and I'm representing Joe. He ran a 6-minute and 1-second mile.
I think it's pretty obvious to say that the junior highs that are going to be receiving these students have a very bright future for their cross-country team. One more round of applause for these athletes.
Not as good as the medal, but we got a pen for you.
Nicely done, everybody.
Go wider. Look at you guys. That's for sure it was going to be like 6.5 minutes or something. Did ever see it? These kids are all like outstanding.
Yeah. Best of the best. 5, 6.
I'm going to interject just one little section in my agenda that I neglected to put on the agenda. But tonight we have Dr. Bruce Brown with us, and Dr. Brown is here to present an award that the district has received. You know, before he comes up, Dr. Brown is retiring for the second time. He worked for several years, over 10 years ago, he worked in District 57 as their leader and retired from full-time superintendency, and then started working for the Regional Office of Education, the North Cook Intermediate Service Center. For the last few years, he's been the executive director and done a fabulous job. The Service Center provides professional development to 44 school districts in North Cook. They help with licensing services. Lisa Nuss contacts them on a regular basis. They do the compliance visits for the state. They do life safety inspections at every school in the North Cook region. They operate our Safe Schools program, which is for kids that might not be able to go to school because of poor choices, and they take them in and try to turn them around to get them back into regular schools. Bus driver training, fingerprinting, truancy prevention, and finally, they are our homeless liaison for many students, and they advocate for those kids. And so, Dr. Brown, thank you for coming tonight. Please, microphone's up there.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson, Board of Education members and audience members. Thank you for being here tonight. I bring a backpack, which I'll talk about in a second. But my thanks to Scott for doing all the things that he does here at District 15 and reminded me what a joy it is to come to evening board meetings. I haven't done that in a while. So it's a great thing to see the kids and to see the respect that you show them and the fact that they get to shine a light on it. It's wonderful. Thank you for doing that. I'm here tonight not in my capacity as regional superintendent or ISC director, but really to help celebrate the folks who work with McKinney-Vento, the homeless populations that we have. And we think as we're moving towards Thanksgiving and counting our blessings, we think, you know, that's so far removed from us. But there's over 2,200 students who've been identified in North Suburban Cook County as being homeless this school year. That's an amazing number to me. It just shocks me. But luckily, we have good people like Dr. Tom Buchler, who works in our office, our McKinney-Vento homeless liaison, who would be here tonight, except he's at a national conference in Miami on homelessness, so he's representing us there. And your own Ms. Corrigan, who does such a great job as your McKinney-Vento liaison. We're very fortunate to have these professionals in those roles. And one of the things that we do each year is we get backpacks for kids, because some of the kids don't have those supplies and such. And if you remember that horrible fire we had in Prospect Heights recently, again, families without homes starting the school year. Inside of each of these backpacks, the kids get our school supplies, hygienic supplies, things to start them off in a good way, in a successful way of the school year. And that's what brings me here, because of the work of the agencies in the area, and Tom Buchler and Alicia Corrigan and everyone else, and the districts, we've gotten thousands of these backpacks, which is a wonderful thing, except where do you store thousands of backpacks? Well, thanks to District 15, we found a place to store these backpacks, a warehouse space that allowed us to keep these in place so that when they're needed for dissemination, that happens. So thank you to District 15, and also in the backpack is a small award, which I'd like to just read if I could. In recognition of exemplary support in removing all barriers for students to attend school, for McKinney-Vento eligible homeless students and unaccompanied youth, presented by the North Cook ISC ROE to Consolidated School District 15. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'll go this way and then back. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your support. Thank you. And happy holidays. Thank you for having me in. Thank you.
Dr. Brown, thank you for 40 years of service, and we wish you well in your next chapter, and thank you for this really neat award.
Well, thank you again, Scott. And also, I know that you are facing the same fate I am in about 6 months, so we'll go down that road together. Thank you.
We have another wonderful celebration ahead of us right now. We've got a recognition of some people that really have gone above and beyond, and they've earned statewide recognition. I'm asked Lisa Nuss, the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, to come up and acknowledge those recipients.
Thank you, President Chupai, Dr. Thompson, and members of the board. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to celebrate with some people who do things wonderful for students each and every day. We have a very rich tradition of excellence in District 15, and it's nice to see people who really promote the continuation of that tradition. The Illinois State Board of Education has an award called Those Who Excel, that they recognize people who really put in a significant contribution to the educational community. So last year there were 7 applications that were submitted by District 15 who could be nominated by a colleague. And out of those 7, all 7 were recognized by the Illinois State Board of Education. We're very proud of these people. It could be individuals or teams of people who have worked very hard together throughout the year. So I'm going to call those people up and also call up a person who either sent in that application on their behalf or somebody else in that department to talk a little bit about the wonderful things they do for our school district and for our children. So the first person I'd like to have up is Sandy Kramer. Sandy is our web and print specialist, and she received the recognition award from ISB under Those Who Excel in the category of educational support personnel. And Julie O'Hara and Morgan DeLack nominated her. See them coming up to say a few words about Sandy.
Hello, everyone. For those of you you that don't know Sandy, it's probably for good reason. She likes to stay out of the limelight. But we wanted to recognize her for this award because she really has gone above and beyond this year in the areas of the website, our new mass notification system, and our new mobile app. These are 3 very large implementations that we did over the course of 1 year. And Sandy, myself, and June Becker were the 3 people that really implemented all of them. Sandy put in very long hours working on weekends, working at night, working in the morning, and never once did she complain about anything because Sandy is so dedicated to this organization and doing the right thing that it was just part of her job. So I'm very blessed to work with her and grateful for her help in implementing these new systems for our district.
Our next award winner is Lene Racina. She's a social worker at Lincoln School, and she was had the award of recognition under the Student Support Personnel category. And she was nominated by her principal, Mary Beth Knuppel, but we have Paul Buden here to speak about Lene.
Good evening. When I think of those who excel award, I always think of leadership and going above and beyond the call for the betterment of students, staff, and families. And then when I think of those traits within our social work department, I do think of Lene Racina. At Lincoln, her principal relies on her each and every day to take on many roles, things such as not just counselor and social worker, but coach, liaison for critical community mental health services, and as a general master problem solver for the most difficult situations that arise. Lene has exhibited those same strong leadership skills not only at Lincoln but also in our district's social work department for the last 20 years. She is a trusted colleague who is often counted on to provide crisis support that at other buildings as those needs do arise, and they have so unfortunately a few times in this school year. She is there to give comfort and solace after the death that may occur in a school community. She works closely with junior high staff during the SOS Depression and Suicide Awareness and Prevention Program each fall, which was just completed this past week. She shares her expertise and resources with everyone in our department and works to build camaraderie as well in our department as one of our social committee chairs. So for these reasons and for so many more, I would like to thank Lene for her leadership and congratulate her on a well-deserved recognition with those who excel award.
Our next award recipient is Elise Hackle. She's a music therapist at Conyers Learning Academy, and she won the recognition award under the category of classroom teacher. And Matt Warren is here to say a few words about Elise.
Thank you, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing Elise Hackle, aka Mrs. H by the students. She is our district's adaptive music teacher. When I say our district's adaptive teacher, she not only works at CLA, but she supports many programs and many students throughout the district. She supports the MILE program, which is located at Sanborn and Carl Sandburg Junior High. She supports the SIP program, which is located at Marion Jordan, Sunling Junior High, as well as Conyers Road Academy, part of the early childhood program. The ACEs and multiple needs programs, also located at Conyers Learning Academy. By supporting all of those programs, she makes music accessible and fun for students at all levels. She not only does that in the classroom, but goes above and beyond outside the classroom, providing concerts, celebrations, and is an active member of all of the buildings that she works in. So it's a major honor, not only for myself, but for the other buildings that have an opportunity to work with Miss H. Thank you.
And our award recipients aren't just limited to staff members. Pete Jackson is a volunteer at Willow Bend Elementary School, and he was recognized with the Award of Merit for Community Volunteer. And we have Joan Thomas here to say a few words about Pete.
I'm here to recognize Pete Jackson for his contributions to the community and to our environmental club. My friend Eva Pitcher, she's sitting back there. We've been running the environmental club at Willow Bend for the past many years, and we are so lucky to have Pete as a volunteer with our club. Many years ago, Pete, along with the Rolling Meadows Environmental Committee, which he was a part of, they were looking for an area to restore to native prairie. And so they were looking for an area, and they found a spot just behind Rolling Meadows High School. It had been overgrown with weeds, and they thought that would be a perfect place to restore to native prairie because it was also behind the high school, and it was near the elementary school. It would be a great outside classroom. And so they pulled out all the weeds and replanted native plants and seeds, and soon the prairie began to flourish. Pete named the prairie after his daughter Emily, who loved prairies, and she also attended Rolling Meadows High School and passed away after graduation, so it was a tribute to her too. After the prairie began to grow, Pete called up Willow Bend School and shared with us his vision, and Abe and I were really excited to share in that vision with him and to have our environmental club help him maintain the prairie. So ever since then, he's been coming to our club, or actually our club goes to him. We go out to the prairie, and he shares with the students all his knowledge of prairies, the importance of prairies. We walk through the prairie, and he helps the kids identify different plants. We go up in the fall, and we harvest the seeds, and in the winter, we learn to store the seeds, and then in the spring, we replant the seeds. Lately, we've been learning more about the insects and the birds and animals that live there, and how they help with the pollination of the prairie. The kids absolutely love when he comes and volunteers, or when we go to the prairie. He's just a person that exudes kindness and patience, and he has such a deep respect for nature, and that is really contagious among the kids. I know Mrs. Pitcher and myself, we're just so grateful for Pete. We just learned so much from him, the kids and the two of us together, and he has forever changed us. Thank
you. Our next award recipient is Deanna Nemchek. She's our counselor in Carl Sandburg, and she won the Merit Award for Early Career Educator. And Doug Hartley, the principal of Carl Sandburg, is here to say a few.
President Chupai, Dr. Thompson, board members, community. I want to introduce Deanna Nemchak. She is our student counselor. She's been excelling really for the 4 years that she's been with us. As soon as she came on, she started talking right away about transforming that position to one that aligns with the American School Counselor Association standards. and she's been working diligently the past 4 years to make that happen. She works very closely with our clinician team to provide mental health and social emotional services to all of our students. Her focus is mainly on the green level kids. So our social worker and psychologist kind of works with the higher need kids. So we have her that works with them, but she also works with every student that's there. Came to her maybe 2 years ago with the idea of getting a National Junior Honor Society system going there. She took it right away. She ran with it. Got a committee together, and this is going to be our second formal year of having National Junior Honor Society, and each year it gets better, and she brings those students out to create messages and gets those messages out to the student population also about colleges and careers. This year or the past couple of years, she's done our the dance stuff. I knew I'd freeze up on this. I watched the leadership too, but our spirit squad, I knew I'd freeze up on some of these. So she really provides services to everybody, after school, during the day, for graduation, elementary, high school. She's just all over the place, and for that, she really deserves the those who excel. She's really made Sandburg a much better place for all of us.
The next is a team. It's our Chromebook initiative team. If anyone had attended any board meetings last year, I think that was the hot topic regularly. So the team, not all the members are here, but I want to read all their names. It was Carol Gajewski, Jason Dietz, Dave Kieshenberg, Kelly Mullenhauer, Colleen Syke, Tim Woomer, and Kyle Mokakos. They won the Merit Award in the team category, and Dr. Barbini is here to say a few words about that very important team. So if you're here, please come forward.
Go team. Well, if I do break it, I'm surrounded by people who I know will be able to help me get it fixed. It's really nice to be here tonight to celebrate those who do truly excel on behalf of kids. And I'm honored to be in all of your presence, and special honor to the Chromebook implementation team. Before I get too far down the path, I do want to recognize the school board. The current board, this was one of the first decisions that you made. It was one of the first decisions that you made to provide over 4,000 kids in District 15 in grades 6, 7, and 8 with a one-to-one device. And that's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a great tool that helps advance 21st century learning in terms of content creation, collaboration, and inquiry. And the team that's before you this evening helped make that decision easy. It was a slam dunk because of the work of these dedicated team members. What did they do? Well, in short, they made sure that our infrastructure, so our bandwidth, our network, our switches, was ready to go and could support that technology and the demands associated with that. They made sure that our staff had professional learning opportunities to prepare them for the kids coming to them, right, with these devices, and to also help them teach, model, and inspire kids in terms of 21st century skills. They helped develop procedures such as acceptable use policies, and they also helped our kids with digital citizenship. You can't give a student a tool like this and not teach them how to use it appropriately. And so, once again, I've said that I'm honored, and I really am, to work with this team. They are much deserving of this statewide recognition and the thanks of not only the children, but the grown-ups that serve them in District 15. Thank you so much for all that you do, because you haven't only made the implementation a success, but you've supported the successful ongoing implementation. So thank you very much.
So one of our award winners was not able to make it tonight, and we will talk about her at a future board meeting. It was Dr. Cheryl Wolfall, who received the Award of Excellence as a school administrator, and she's at a conference for biliteracy right now, so she's exactly where she should be. There's so many great things about working in District 15, and I say it over and over again, that the best thing about working in District 15 are the people. I'm so proud to be honored to have people who literally live behind me, but who bring such rich experiences to our students. They bring rich opportunities that I don't think are typical, but they also bring support either on a day-to-day basis or in times of crisis. And those you guys, but you're behind me. There's no award that really can say how much that you're appreciated and loved in our district, but I hope you know that you are. So thank each and every one of you for doing what you do every day so selflessly. We so appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Our Above and Beyond award for you tonight was pinned. It is given out very judiciously. There aren't many people in the district that have these, and we'd like to have these because you really have gone above and beyond.
Thank you all for coming out. Thank you also for the people that spoke about all of the accomplishments that are those who excel winners have impacted our schools with.
The next couple of items in my section are reports from a couple school principals on their school improvement plans. So I'd like to invite Jennifer Sayawani from Lake Louise and Rachel Bland from Stewart Paddock to come up, please.
Feeling short time?
Feeling very short, yes, President Shupai.
That's
Rachel
usually
did
me,
that to
but
the
the
chair.
chair's about the same level.
Hi, I'm Rachel Bland. I'm the principal at Paddock School. I have this picture up behind me, and what comes to my mind when I see this picture is teamwork. And I'm going to talk to you about what it looks like at Paddock School going through our SIT process and how it all relates to teamwork. So first we're going to talk about our goals. So our goals at Paddock are to reduce our office discipline referrals in the area of physical aggression by 10%. Now, last year it was less than 5% of our building that had referrals in this area, but we still feel like that's an area we need to focus on. And then we're focusing on math and having our students have mathematical conversations during the math block. So some of the things we're doing is you met the allies, that wonderful group of student leaders that were here for the pledge. We also have a monthly focus. This month it happens to be recess, which we are talking about the 3 B's. So that's be respectful, be responsible, and be safe, and what that looks like outside. And then we're teaching active supervision. So we have all these people that are outside during recess, and we're coming together as a team. We're talking about what that looks like, and then teaching our staff about how to work with our kids outside when they come up to them and they maybe have an issue with another student. And then we're implementing the Expect Respect program, which is a district-wide program this year. Focusing on the math, we have gone from everyone doing something different in their math class to having a systematic approach to what it looks like at Paddock. So when you come to Paddock, we have different things that are in place, such as during the 75-minute block, 30 minutes of that block, our students are having mathematical conversations. They're talking about math, which is very different from when I was in school or anything that we did even 2 years ago. So we're really increasing those conversations. We're having sentence stems that our students are using to have those conversations, and we're using mathematical vocabulary. So we have lots of resources for our teachers. We've created this math conversation strategies. Teachers can go to this. It's a link in there that they can go and use. We also have an instructional coach this year, which has been so helpful to us. So we're really lucky that that's happening in our building. And then our building leadership team this year is opening up their classrooms. That's something different that maybe we haven't done in the past. We've never done that in the past, but not typical that you see in a school where teachers are opening up their classrooms during the math block, and then other teachers are coming in to see what they're doing so that they can then go into their classrooms and use those strategies that are working. And then we're collaborating with other schools such as Lake Louise. Perfect that you're sitting right here today. So what's next for us is that we're collecting student data, we're collecting teacher data, we're going to figure out what else we need to do during the math block, and we are going to continue our partnership with Lake Louise. We are planning with them for our Institute Day, where both of our schools will come together and work as a team to figure out what the next steps are. So as you can see, there are all these different things. I'm really proud of Paddock School and all we've done and our collaboration and meeting our goals. So I'm really excited about where we're going next. Thanks.
Thank you.
We just have to move.
Good evening, President Shubai, Dr. Thompson, members of the board, and members of the committee. It's a great pleasure that I'm up here speaking with you about our school improvement and data-wise journey. We started off with students, with this picture of students on the front. All of these students have something in common besides their proud smiling faces. They all won awards for showing persistence in their academic work. And persistence is something that's very important at Lake Louise because it's one of the main lenses that we've used to look at for school improvement. Our school improvement story is framed by our school improvement goals, our actions to address the goals, and our next steps. Using multiple data points, we determined that our academic focus would be math, and using a similar data mining process, we determined that our social-emotional goal would be to reduce physical aggression by taking a multifaceted approach to social-emotional learning. After looking at both teacher-centered and student-centered data, we determined that our learner-centered problem in math was that students have trouble making sense of problems independently and persevering while solving them. There comes that persistence piece again. Basically, students have trouble approaching word problems, breaking them apart to understand them, and then having enough persistence to see it through to the end to solve them. To address this learner-centered problem in math, we chose two strategies. One was our structured strategies, which are kind of pictured up here on the slide, just two of them. They help students break down the problem and kind of approach it. And one of them is, as you can see here, is called cube. So it's just simply like circle the numbers in the problem, underline the question, box the keywords. It's just a way to help students enter and approach the problem. We also have it projected in Spanish as well because some of our students take, math class in Spanish as well. We also use Math Talk. That's another one of our strategies we're using to approach our learner-centered problem. And we provide students with sentence stems in order to approach math conversations. We know and believe that math conversations are the first step to developing a very well-rounded explanation and argument in math. And we also know that when students are able to talk about their explanation and develop their argument, we know that's going to translate into their writing, so that we know that they're going to write a good explanation. The approach that we took for our social-emotional goal is multifaceted, and I love this picture up here because these are our respectable team. They were actually before the board not too long ago. They are part of our green team. They are our student leadership team at Lake Louise. We believe that student leadership is a really good way to connect students to school. It's also a great way to have peer models in our school. They model our Expect Respect program, which is another way that we approach our social-emotional goal. We revitalized it this year. This picture of the Respectables is actually right before the first Expect Respect pep rally that we had that was all student-led. They got up in front of their peers and modeled appropriate, respectful behaviors, which was a big challenge, but a great accomplishment for them. 3 years ago, we actually introduced these little mindset icons that you see on the screen. These 5 mindsets, empathy, flexibility, optimism, resilience, persistence, there's that persistence again. They are shown to be the 5 successful characteristics that students have for longevity and success in school. So they work great at the elementary level, and they're great teaching for them as they go on to middle school and high school. Lastly, we do social emotional teaching actually daily. We have a 1.5-minute social emotional clip that we show every day to students. It's different every day. And we also have incorporated this year second step program materials. These program materials have been in the district for a long time, but we are taking them to all students and teaching them all parts of the social emotional wheel. So it's we feel it's a very strong approach to our social emotional learning goal. Our next steps for us are very similar to what Principal Bland talked about over here. We are going to be reviewing our data from our Math Talk rubric and our Envision assessments and kind of seeing where do we need to enhance our strategies in our Math Talk. We are going to plan and adjust our instructional strategies, and we are going to focus our January professional development along with MEDEC School on these enhancements and our collaboration between the 2 schools. So it's great to be sitting next to Principal Bland because we did the same collaboration last year. We found it to be very fruitful for both of our staffs. So we started with the picture of students, and we're ending with the picture of students. These students actually showed their persistence, once again, working with their buddy classes to create acronyms to tell why they are proud of Lake Louise, their school. So I'm very thankful for all the support we've received from District 15 in terms of developing our SIP plan, and thankful that I had the chance to share it with all of you this evening. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jumped ahead a little bit, take care of a few items before we get back to the 5-year financial projections and the tax levy. The next item I'd like to talk about is the Every Student Succeeds Act and the school report cards that just recently came out and the designations that were a part of those school report cards. The 19 schools that received school report cards in the district, 2 of them were designated as exemplary. There were I can do the math. There were 13 that were designated as commendable, and 4 that were then designated as underperforming. And I just want to share just a little bit of information about, in a kind of a general sense, about what we're doing, particularly with those schools that were identified and designated as underperforming. First of all, as an example, Walter, our sonling, was designated as underperforming. Their students with IEPs were not performing at the level necessary to reach the commendable level, but they were 0.36 points away from hitting that mark. So they were just slightly below it. So the entire school is marked underperforming when they are so close to the cutoff point that it really is a shame that an entire school is being designated. The other group that Sunling had that was underperforming was a cultural group where there are only about 24 to 26 of those students even in the district. And those students didn't hit the mark, but the rest of the 600 students in the district were part of a school that was designated as underperforming. So it's really an unfortunate thing that the state has done this designation. Small group of kids, and particularly like with our IEP students, they're just so close to hitting that mark. It's a shame that they have to designate the entire school as underperforming. But we still, in the Department of Instruction, Dr. Schnorr and her staff are working hard to make sure that we can lift those schools out of those designations and address the issues that are raised by the assessments. And so there are many things that are put into place. I've got a list of things that we've implemented at each of our schools here, but I'm going to give just 1 or 2 examples of what we're doing in order to remediate these issues that were raised by the designations and the school report card, and what we're hoping will bring them out of that designation next year. So at Carl Sandburg, they were designated as underperforming, and it was just one group of really EL kids at Carl Sandburg that were 1.89 points away from the designation. So the rating is from 0 to 99, and they were just 1.89 points as a group away from hitting the mark. But nonetheless, we've implemented Success Maker, which is a math program there, in order to make sure that the math scores at Carl Sandburg are going to be raised, and it's going to impact their designation. We implemented next year culturally, linguistically responsive training, which will help our teachers interact with students from different cultures and help them to receive the education and learn at a higher rate. They have a shared instructional coach that's going into all the classrooms to help the teachers know what the best strategies are, what the research-based strategies are to make sure kids are learning at the highest levels, and so that instructional coach is going into almost every classroom. We've got a co-teaching embedded coaching model, so we've got two teachers working together in many situations so they can share with each other and give each other feedback and make sure that all kids are being hit during the instruction. And we've implemented a community school like we have at Winston campus at Carl Sandburg. And so those are just some of the steps we're taking for these 4 schools that were designated as underperforming. And I think I provided the information to the board, but I'll give it to you again about why those schools were designated as underperforming and the steps we're taking. But I wanted to assure you and the community that we're taking these things very seriously. We're working hard. Although they really aren't fair designations, we're going to address the issues that were raised, and hopefully there won't be any underperforming schools in the future. The next item on my agenda is some new AV equipment in this room, and I'll ask Morgan Delac to come up and just tell us a little bit about what has been implemented here and the results of those AV changes.
Good evening, everyone. Hello again. You've probably seen me wandering the room a bit more than usual tonight because we do have this new equipment. The old AV equipment in this room was quite old, and it was really more consumer grade equipment that wasn't really appropriate for the space. So over time that equipment started to fail, and we were really looking at ways that we could improve the system and also offer more transparency to the community. So in addition to replacing the cameras, we implemented a live streaming software. So for the very first time, this meeting is live. It is live to our Facebook page and to our school district website. It will also then be posted on YouTube later with closed captioning for those that aren't able to hear the meeting. So we are really doing our best to reach everyone that we can. We know it's not always possible for people to come to the meetings in person, but we wanted to make sure that this was available to those that were really interested in watching it live. We do have quite a few people watching right now. I was just checking. There was at one time, I think, 25 people watching at once. People are commenting, people are interacting, and it's really great to see. And in addition to the live feature, they are able to see the video quite well because it's all high definition. The audio quality is much better, and the computer system is integrated into that, so they don't have to squint and try to see what might be on the screen. They can see it just up close like they were in the room with us here. So thank you to the technology department for working with my department on implementing this. Mark Radke back there has really been working very hard to find the right solution for us, to get it set up, to get himself trained and some backup people trained. It's been a team effort, but we're really glad that it's here and hope the community enjoys this enhanced feature for their use. Thanks, Mark. Any questions?
I'm not that excited about HD on this face, but you know, it is what it is. The next item in my section is really to talk about retired police officers in schools. Last month, I floated an idea before you and asked you to think about it for a month about having retired police officers being able to carry firearms in the schools, assuming some of our secretarial, clerical positions in our schools. And I indicated that I thought this would create a much safer school situation than many other steps that we could take to keep our schools safe. And so I've done just a little bit more investigation, and I have talked to some chiefs of police, and they're very excited about the idea. They think we'll be able to find some people. And in order to really compensate them fairly, what I'd like to do is for them to be able to possess a firearm, have the extensive training that they have, and provide that extra pretty significant amount of safety to our schools, for our students and our staff. I'd like to propose that we give them a stipend of about $50 a day on top of their rate that they would get from the collective bargaining agreement. And for every day that they possess a firearm in the school and make it a safer place, I'd like to give them an extra $50 on top of their regular benefits and salaries. And for each retired officer that would be in a school, it's approximately $9,700 a year increase for that one position. Less than $10,000. I was reading today that the school safety business is up to $12 billion a year annually in the United States. It's a huge business. And as I evaluated all the ways we could expend dollars to make our schools safer, this was a no-brainer for me. It seems like someone that's trained, that's had years of experience, that's able to pick up on things that I'm not able to pick up on. I can't remember, did I tell you the story about the police officer at Jewel, where he saw two guys come in there to Jewel, pick up baskets, and he said, that's a little unusual. People don't usually pick up two of those little baskets. And he knew, because of his training, to keep his eye peeled for them. So he went out to his, he was off duty, he went out into his squad car, unmarked squad car, and he waited. And sure enough, he saw one of the men come walking out with a couple baskets full of stuff that had no bags, no receipts, and he knew that they had done this. And for the regular folks like you and me, we wouldn't think anything of somebody picking up two baskets. But this is just an example of someone that's trained to see things a little differently. And having someone in our school that could see things differently, pick up on things, and have the ability to respond instantaneously, I think is really a great idea and worthy of a consideration. So you've had a chance to think about it for a month. It's about a $9,700 increase per salary position per year. My goal would be, as these positions open up, that we fill them with retired police officers, approximately age 50, could use our medical benefits, our health and dental benefits, and they could use a job, and we could benefit from their expertise, their security measures, and really make our schools safer for our kids and our staff.
Anybody have thoughts?
Yeah, I know we briefly talked last month about we already have school resource officers in place. So can you talk a little bit about what we have in place currently, with how this would look? Will we keep the school resource officers that are there? Would we be continuing with help from the municipalities, or is this going to be wholly contained within ourselves?
An excellent question. So we would continue to have our school resource officers in our junior highs. As you know, we have one here in this junior high. We have one at Plum. We have one at Winston Campus Junior High, and then we have one that's split between our Rolling Meadows schools. And the reason we have a split school resource officer between our two Rolling Meadows junior highs is because the Rolling Meadows Police Department doesn't have enough personnel to provide us with a full-time person for each building. The same would be true for Palatine. They would not be able to provide us with school resource officers for every one of our elementary buildings. Hoffman Estates would not be able to do that. They just don't have an excess number of police officers. So we would retain our school resource officers in our junior highs, and then we would start putting these retired police officers in elementary buildings where we don't have someone on site on a regular basis.
These officers that are going to be in the schools, obviously they're retired, and they'll be working in like I guess you say like an administrative, in the office as an administrator. They would be plain clothes, and they're going to, as far as them carrying their weapons, would they be like a concealed carry?
Yeah, I think they would, we could talk about that.
Okay, I was just wondering if you had any implementation.
I don't think it's a bad idea for people to know that we've got someone that has trained as a police officer with a firearm in the building. But I think probably they'd be wearing ankle holsters underneath their pants. And the other question that Mike brought up was, what about the communication between our regular police officers and police forces and these retired officers? And they would be working closely together, because we wouldn't want the police officers to be responding to something and not knowing that one of the retired police officers in the building had a weapon. So we'd want to make sure that there was good communication, plans had been made so that they would work together, so that if anything ever did happen, that they would be working jointly together versus independently.
Sure, yeah, makes sense.
Any other questions?
Just for argument's sake, if we were to go live with this, say, tomorrow, which we're not, how many positions would we be able to fill, and what is a timeline that we're looking at? Because I know we're talking about replacing current members in the administrative offices within the schools. To replace them, are we looking, and how would we prioritize that at this point?
Well, it's only when an opening would occur, so we're not going to necessarily replace somebody. But if somebody were to resign, retire, and we had an opening in one of our office positions, we'd like to start considering hiring these retired police officers. And so, Lisa, I don't know, do we have 3 or 4 positions open now?
I think currently there's
2?
I think there's
Yeah. So I think we have 2 right now, so that we could begin filling those positions with 2 if we did have applicants that were interested and the board approved that. We also, of course, would need to talk to the ESPA union because these are ESPA positions, and so we'd like to talk to them and bring them on board to get them to be partners with this effort.
What do you think about, as we were consider introducing a new retired police officer to a school, having some sort of parent communication or parent meeting to help parents understand what role this person will play in their child's school environment and how they might interact with their students?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent idea. I think it would be something we would definitely do. It's a great idea. And the kids as well, I suppose. How they get to know
Right.
them.
It's important for them to know that they've got
Yeah.
someone there to help keep them safe.
Yeah.
And one of the resolutions at the upcoming meeting addresses student safety and an amendment to allow broader, I mean, under certain requirements satisfied by the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act, staff fulfilling that requirement. So I mean, that's subject to be voted on, but that would even, does that resolution, where does that fall in terms of bearing, in terms of,
I think that resolution.
what standing does it have?
That resolution is separate from what we would be doing because
Right.
there's a federal law that allows school retired police officers to carry firearms in schools. I think the resolution that the Illinois Association of School Board is proposing is allowing teachers to be trained or other school staff members to be trained, and that's really a whole different ballgame.
Right.
These are people that have done this their whole life, that have continuously been trained, and that would be bringing those skills with them instantaneously versus someone else that would have to be trained and probably is not that comfortable in handling a firearm.
In that scenario. Okay.
One last thing, I know the information you supplied to us, I think it was last month, and read through it, and one of the recommendations from our legal counsel is that we should, run this by the Illinois state, they don't disagree with our interpretation of the law.
Mm-hmm.
Are we at that point yet, or?
No, I was waiting for your go-ahead.
Okay, I was just wondering. I didn't know if we had gotten to that point yet, that we were asking them if everything was good to go legally.
I think, attorneys, they always would do the worst-case scenario. You want to
Sure, yeah.
be cautious in their, I'm sorry, no offense. Too there, sorry. That's why we hire them, because we want them to give us that caution.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we.
But I really think that it's something that will be pretty easy to get sent through.
Okay.
And the idea here a month ago was to get a general feel for whether we thought it was something that made sense, was sensible moving forward, could niche into our schools and bring some elevated level of safety. So.
Yeah, I like it. Sounds good.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to do the necessary next steps to look into it.
We want to do everything possible to keep our kids and staff safe. I can tell you the chiefs of police would really embrace this wholeheartedly. Their worst fear is for something to happen at a school where they have to respond in a situation where it could be really terrible. And they think this could be a tremendous deterrent, and also if something were unfortunately ever to occur, this could really be a response that would be much faster than anything else we could have.
Yeah, and I think just looking, we're all. You brought up, Dave, the resolutions and things like that. I feel a lot more comfortable with this proposal than some of the things that were in there that seem to be just a lot more variables, a lot more things that potentially could go wrong and that sort of thing. So that's why I think this is a good policy.
And I think the comfort level is so important, Zubair, when you're talking about somebody who is a career law enforcement officer. and has a comfort level with whether it's a weapon or just paying attention to the details and being involved in what's going on around them, versus taking your average me and saying, okay, now I'm going to train you to do this and expect that I act the correct way in a stressful situation. The chances of me doing the right thing are probably pretty slim.
I think
And that's
it's
not
important
not great.
Just important that we communicate with our community families and our students, because I think the idea of arming teachers has been in the news fairly consistently, and just so people aren't mistaking that we're hiring people and arming them in our schools, but these are very specific positions and very specific qualifications and individuals that need them.
I think it's also important, Barbara, for everybody to know that we're not doing this because we've had an issue or a situation, or it's not responding to something. It's being proactive
Preventative
potentially to elevate the security.
So I think moving to the next steps would be appropriate.
Terrific, thank you very much. We'll move forward then, and I'll give you a report on how we're doing.
All right.
The last item in my section is really to report back to you the progress on our Park Place issue. As you know, we have pulled back our proposal to purchase that property, told the seller that we are no longer an interested and active participant in that sale. After that happened, the owner came to us and asked if there was anything that we could be doing in order to make the sale go forward. Offered 800,000 square feet more of retail space to the village as an incentive to try to get this going. And I mentioned it to the village, and the village said that the village officials were interested in furthering the conversation to see maybe there is something that could be done to make that retail space more viable for the community, for the village, to reduce sales tax and real estate tax, and then maybe also potentially provide us with some space for a school. So we are continuing those conversations. We've gotten our earnest money back. The sale is done. The deal is over. But the conversations continue. So I just wanted to make sure you're aware that in the near future we are going to be having some conversations with the village and the seller, the owner, and see if there's something positive I could bring back to you as a potential for a new school site.
So would that conversation be happening between the current owner and the city of Palatine or village of Palatine to try to work out something that's more agreeable between them, and then they'd bring us in?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what the order about, things happening would be.
It seemed like the village council was concerned about losing real estate and sales tax.
Yeah, no, they didn't like it.
Yeah, they didn't like it. And maybe we could have a compromise where they could continue to get real estate and sales tax, but there also could be a space for a school. So I think that's why we're having this conversation with the village officials.
Okay.
Did you guys all see the consultant report that came back with the analysis of student population, where the students come from within the district? There were some heat maps in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Some of those to me were absolutely compelling, in particular the one that showed the level of pull of students from different areas across District 15, and from the blue to the red. Yeah, the intensity of that area in particular, with the quantity of children coming out on that heat map was impactful to me.
And the lack of proximity to any school.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for the endorsement of the project with the retired officers going in the buildings. We'll jump back up to our regularly scheduled agenda now, and Mike, I think you're next to talk about the 5-year financial projections. I apologize that I'm making you scroll through your electronic documents.
Good evening.
Good evening.
President Schupine, Dr. Thompson, board members. We review our 5-year projections, every November. Wait 1 second, it gets a little bit darker. So So last year we looked through 21-22 school years. Obviously, this year we had 1 year, and we'd like to see where we'll be at fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Corey Boltemire, when I finish my presentation, we'll be doing a presentation on the tax levy for next year. But obviously, our budget, revenue and expenditures, we start with our tax levy. Going forward, we're going to assume $10 million in new growth to our EAV, beginning with the 2018 levy, continuing to the 2019 levy. Average of the last 5 years has been a little bit higher than that, 12.17 million. Going forward, we do know that we have 2 tips dropping off. It'll give us about 35.8 million of new growth for the 2020 levy, and another 20.5 million for the 21 tax year levy. That which hits our 21, 22, and 22, 23 fiscal years. We discussed those last year. Those numbers are about the same. So there are some additional dollars that will be coming to the district at the end of this forecast that we're looking at. We're assuming, so the forecast that I've prepared, the business office has prepared, assuming 1.5% CPI rate for all future years. It's interesting when we look at that, it was 0.8% in 2014, 0.7% in 15, 2.1% in 2016 and 2017. Through September, which is the last month that we have, they haven't published October yet, CPI is about 2.4%. So if that were to continue and doesn't change at all in November, December, we have in other years seen that CPI number drop substantially due to energy in November and December. We'll see. I mean, the whole market, as we've been watching it, if you looked at the stock market, it's been down the last 5 days. October was a horrible month. Oil's been way down. That's actually rebounded a little bit today. It's hard to say where our CPI will be, our inflation rate for calendar year 2018. So right now, needless to say, it's 2.41%. The Fed does set a target of 2%. That's their target rate. I don't know how good the source is, but I was looking on the internet, statista.com. That's their forecast: 2.54, 18, 2.44, 2.13. They're all over 2s going through 2023. What is that going to be? We obviously won't know. Be conservative. I put 1.5% in. I've actually done a couple of different scenarios, if you've looked at the forecast yet, where we look at different scenarios based on different CPI rates. But the base model that we're using, 1.5%, an additional 0.5% increase in CPI provides, if the district decides to capture all the CPI, about $625,000 a year in revenue, which compounds annually. State aid, 16-17 was the last year under the old formula before EBF came in, about $15.3 million. So we had state aid, special ed services, special ed personnel, state aid, summer school, bilingual, about 15.3. That was all rolled into the EBF formula. We were about $800,000 last year, higher, 16.1. And going forward to 18-19, we're at 16.5 million for the current school. So that's going up, hold harmless. So we're not supposed to get any less. I say not supposed. We never know what the state's going to do, but we're not supposed to get anything less than the next succeeding year than we have in the current year. There's a bit of commitment that the state needs to make to fully fund that formula to get everybody to adequacy within about the next 9, 10, 11 years. District 15 is still at about 80% adequacy. So we've got more additional dollars. Where that continues in the future, we hope that those dollars will continue on EBF, but time will tell on that. And then we have some other state aid line items in there that are kind of like, that are reimbursement formulas based on our costs as a proportionate share of the state costs. So you can see that total state dollars almost $16 million in 16-17, 16.8 about $17 million 18-19. We did talk to the board previously, summer projects. So we have prepared most of the documents that will come to the board in probably January or February. So we have about $6.67 million capital projects summer of 19. The Lincoln School Univents, replacement of the roof at Sunling, roof replacement at Central Road, and HVAC replacements. And because of the way the dollars come in, as soon as school gets out, as the board well knows, the contractors are in there the very, school ends on Friday, contractors are in there on Monday. So depending on how the bill, some of it's 18, 19 school year, some of it's 19, 20. It's just the timing. It's all summer 19 projects. And then we'll talk a year from now, or maybe about 10 months from now, about summer of 20 projects. So if we think about that, we did about $8 million summer of 18. And the prior 2 years, we had the life safety budget, we've done about 27. Those are about $30 million all total. So board's made a nice commitment, big commitment to the capital projects, and we see that continuing going on. I will say it's not on the slide. I have, after the 1920 school year, back to the board's original number, $3 million. So that's what I have going through the 23 school year. So as we talk about additional capital projects, we know there's still about $9,300 million of outstanding life safety projects. We'll be discussing that more in the future, but I've only got to $3 million, so I just want everybody to remember that.
Mike, what's the note on there about the additional $1.5 million?
Oh, so the $3 million, that's a good point, thank you, Dave. So we've always planned $3 million, we have $3 million capital projects. In addition to the 6.68, there's another $1.5 million for like maintenance type projects. So we haven't finalized all those. I have a list. What are those projects? Like carpeting replacements. We did carpeting replacement in Pleasant Hill this summer. We're looking at, maybe we have to do carpet replacement at, I think we're looking at 2 other buildings. We've done playground replacements the last 2 summers. We have a list of playground replacement projects that we put on the list. So they're more maintenance type projects that we do every year. We have some asphalt repavement projects in there. Blacktop gets bad, we have to replace that. That all comes into the 1.5, which is in addition to the 6.6. So they're still bid projects because they're over $25,000, but they're not the big ticket items.
Okay.
Makes sense? Good question, thank you. I did add a line item on the 5-year forecast this year for textbook replacements. Going back about 3 or 4 years, the board allocated money. We replaced math textbooks first. That was about $1.5 million. Then the following 2 years after that, the board allocated about $750,000 each year for science textbook replacements. We've done social studies, I believe, but we wanted to look at all of our textbook replacement responsibilities, I guess for lack of a better term, going through 2022-23. So to comply with all the curriculum initiatives that we have in the district, about 6.3. I've built in $6.3 million textbook replacements for literacy, math, science, social studies, and foreign language over those 4 school years. I know Meg Schnurr spent time with the subcommittees. We've talked about it at the board level, but I've never really had that as a separate line item. So I think it's important for the board and the community to know that that is a commitment that we have to realize is there and plan for that accordingly.
Right, that makes sense.
So we look at assumptions going forward. We'll look at health a little bit. I'm assuming a 5% annual increase in health benefit costs going forward. Interesting, as I go back to 10-11, through the last school year, our average annual increase has only been 1.74%. I think we've done a fantastic job on health. I said active union and management healthcare committee has worked to keep that to a minimum. Lisa Nuss and I and Francine Mueller work really hard with CTC. We review the costs every year. We've made changes to the program every year, and I think we've seen that being reflected in what the healthcare costs have been. I think our increase when I brought to the board this March was about 2 to 2.5%, and we're self-funded. And I look at this number every month. July and August were bad months. Our claims were pretty high. July, August, September, and October were low. And I'll go out on a limb at this point, and I think we'll come in within budget this year for a variety of reasons. That's a whole other discussion. But what we've budgeted this year, at least through October, I think we're looking good. So I think we'll come within the budget. So I think we'll be within that 1.74 and 2.25% again.
And can I just interject?
Yes.
Very prudent use of dollars for healthcare, but it's a very robust healthcare plan that we offer to our employees. So we haven't really reduced the benefits as making smarter choices and offering still a quality healthcare option for all of our employees.
That's correct. We really have, as Dr. Thompson said, we really have not really reduced the level of benefits. There's cost-saving initiatives that we've been able to put in and different alternatives. And I'll say one big one is our healthcare, it's called the PBM, our Pharmacy Benefit Manager, who provides the prescription drugs, was with Blue Cross. We went to CVS Caremark about 2 or 3 years ago. So our employees get the same prescription drugs that they had before, but we've seen substantial savings through that program alone, which has saved the district a lot of money. So the product is still there. They can still get the same drugs. Sometimes changes to the formulary, but Blue Cross changed that as well. But it's been very, very beneficial cost-wise to the district. Because we assume a 1.5% increase in CPI, we also assume a 1.5% annual increase in school budgets and in departmental budgets, irrespective of textbooks and capital outlay and what have you. 2% annual increase in utilities. Actually, that's coming in pretty good. Craig Phillips and I do work with we've had grants the last 3 years, and we have been able to do some energy efficiency projects. We've got some grants over the years, so we've been able to come within 2%. Just so the board knows, I know we've talked about this, but we've actually, for commodity pricing, we've locked in our electrical commodity pricing through June 30 of 2023, and did I say electrical? Did I say electrical?
Yes.
Electrical through 2023, June 30, and we've not locked in our natural gas pricing through June 30 of 2022. Natural gas pricing is a little bit up now because we got this cold snap. So we're immune to that because we've locked in our pricing. So being that we've done that, I don't see any reason why we would, and with all the energy savings that we've done, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to come within that 2% benchmark that we've established. On the salaries, we continue to plan for annual lane advancement costs. So as teachers get advanced degrees, they go from one salary link to another. We assume $200,000 for that. Actually came in at $202,783 this year. So I think that's pretty good. And then attrition, which is those teachers that maybe work for us for a year or 2, 3, whatever, and leave for whatever reason. They stay home, they raise a family, a spouse gets transferred. We assume $425,000 savings. Somebody goes out at a BA3, BA4, we hire them a lower salary.
So no retirees in that.
There's no, that's right, absolutely correct. No retirees whatsoever. Just under $340,000 on that. I think the prior year it was about $470. So I still think that $425,000 number is good. Contracts, DTO expires in 2020. That's transportation. SEIU maintenance custodial expires in 21. ESPA expires in 2022. I don't know when the CTC contract expires, but it's 2026. So what we have in the budget this year, we have 885 CTC positions, $69.3 million. That's what we have in the budget. When we negotiated the CTC contract, we estimated right for 10 years what those costs would be for 880 FTE. And that was 3 years ago. We said the cost would be $69.365 million. We've actually come in, we're right on budget, but we actually have 5 more positions. So, point on that, when we did that 10-year contract, we said we'd keep costs less than 1% per year, about 0.92, I think is what we said it would be. For 10 years, we're still coming in actually a little bit under that number. So, we're right on target. So, I don't know, that's a .0000 something variance. Really, really small. So every year when we do this, we look at one 5-year forecast. So Dr. Thompson and I said, well, maybe we should put a couple different scenarios in there and look at a couple of them. So I got 3 scenarios. I call scenario 1 just traditional 5-year forecast, what we've looked at in the past. We have draft results of operations. We always add that in there. Normally we would have the audit tonight, but there were some errors with the TRS reports. So we get pension data, which goes into the notes and financial statements. TRS issued that statewide. Notice there was an error in it. They have to reissue that whole report, so we'll bring that to the board in December. That's why we don't have it tonight. Nonetheless, we have draft results, what we look like for 17-18, which is just in the school year. We've put those in there. We're planning for the $6.668 million in projects for the summer of 19. And we can see our revenues, total revenues and transfers in, 159.4 million. Because of all the TIFs dropping off, CPI increases that we've talked about, and all the other items that we talked about, by 2022-23, we have total revenue of about $172 million. Expenditures this year, 167.2. And if you look on the capital project line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we spent 8.6 million last year, and we saw that number earlier, 7.369. That's part of the summer 18 projects. 1920, it's 5.9, and then $3 million in 2021, 21, 22, 22, 23. I'm sure that will change as we talk, as we look at our other outstanding projects. But that's what we have in there going out through 2023. So our expenditures. And you can see there's some, if you look at the ed fund, 1920, we have $130 million, drops down to 128.8. In 1920, there's 56 teachers that are on re-up. That's their last year. So we have teachers at the highest level, 56 of them retiring at the end of 20, and then we bring in the teachers at basically step 1 of the BA schedule this year too. So there's quite a substantial savings on salary on those 56 teachers, which is why we see ed fund expenditures actually going down from 1920 to 2021. So if we look at fund balance, which is what I always do, I always go to that last number and say, what is our fund balance numbers looking at? So at the end of 17-18, and this is all funds excluding debt, because debt's dedicated, we can only use it for principal and interest payments. 59.1 million is our ending fund balance. By the end of 22-23, we're actually growing fund balance. So as we look at net change in fund balance, 18-19, 19-20, it shows a negative, but that's because of the high spending that we have in capital projects. And we know that.
And yeah, on purpose.
Yep. So we're actually adding to fund balance 2021, 21, 22, about $3 million a year. So we're looking strong, probably even look stronger than next. I think pretty certain that EBF will provide additional resources to the district, which we'll then have to decide how we want to spend those resources, to address whatever concerns we have. But nonetheless, we were in a strong financial position, actually growing fund balance.
Mike, can you flip back to that?
I'm sorry, yes. Going too fast.
Because I agree with you that it's the net change in fund balance in the out years is good, but it's driven by the $3 million in capital projects. That's probably light.
That would be light. I would agree. Yes.
So
yes.
I look at that as sort of if you looked at that as $6 million, you'd be not depleting fund balance rather than aspirationally growing it. That gives you sort of your mark of what cushion is to run at a balance more than putting too much stock in the fact that it would be growing in the out years, because I think that's ambitious given the number of projects we have on the.
That's correct. I would agree with that, yes.
Okay.
And if you make the assumption that we continue forward with this same concept, that where we're not tabling projects for the future, but we're taking care of them as we go,
right,
then that would flatten out that growth.
Right.
And those numbers will change once the board's goal of having a long-term facilities plan in place, we would identify some of those things so we can reduce those things.
So good point, thank you. So then, as we looked at that, and then we thought to ourselves, well, what if CPI comes in at 2%, right? It's at 1.5. What if it does come in at 2%? We saw that one source on the internet said it's going to be over 2%. We know that the Fed targets 2% for CPI. Too fast. So that was the only. So everything else is the same. I just changed that one variable, put it at 2%, And now we're looking at adding a fund balance 4.5 to 5.6 million in those out years. So again, I think to your point, more money would come in, but more money could be allocated to capital projects because of that, or whatever other initiative the board deems would be important. And then we thought about it, we said, well, we have 5% in there for health. Our total health budget is about $24 million, I think. I should have looked that up. It's about $22 to $24 million we spend totally on health. We have got 5% in there. We looked at it, we said the average annual increase is 1.74%. What if it stays at 2.5%? What does that do to our budget then? So then I left everything the same at 2, added that one change in there. And now we're looking at adding the fund balance, and looking at those 3 out years again, of 5.6 to 7.8 million. So the fund balance is actually growing about $73 million. So really what that tells us, if all of that comes true, and as we've discussed, we've got capital projects, we have other needs out there, there are resources that we can apply as we go out. Now we're going out 5 years. Usually we say we're pretty accurate going out 3 or 5. We're a little bit more out there, a little bit farther out there. So your reliability goes down, right? The farther you go out, the more your reliability goes down. But looking at where we're at and looking at that, I think that gives the board a lot of flexibility and a lot of room for discussion as far as where we would want to go and start planning on a long-term basis.
Is there a variable that you would say would identify a downside scenario? Because these kind of provide the cushion to where you think there's some conservatism in the plan. Is there, or is it just that with the contracts and the stability of some of the numbers that it's predominantly upside potential?
I was trying to come up with a good down one, because I don't want to make it too rosy and say, because something bad could always happen, right? Right? So I looked about that. When I look at CTC salaries, so what we do with CTC, what I have in there for, let me say it this way, what I have in there for CTC salaries is below the amount that we had in when we assumed, or what we calculated would be when we sold the CTC contract. Could be $1 to $2 million higher. We're coming in below it. I know in Finance Committee I did that one and I put that in there. I thought about doing it again, but then I thought to myself, that's older data, that's about 3 years old. And what we do is, I call them scattergrams. So when we hire everybody, we put them on the salary grid. Who's at BA0? And then we take all 885 teachers and we step them. So we take where they're at today, we step them through for the next 5 years. And as they transition from tier 2 to tier 1, after they have 7 years of seniority with the district, we know what that is, and we make those changes. So it could go a little bit higher. I don't know how much, honestly, I don't know how much reliability or validity I would put into that. I guess another negative is as we talk about it, we know from a statewide level, we have they call it the pension time bomb ticking out there, because that liability statewide keeps growing and growing and growing. There's been talk about transferring or pushing some of the pension costs down to the locals. We have a new governor now. We don't know where that's going to go. I know.
It's more in a shock effect than it is in a trend.
So that's a possibility that's out there. I think it's just so premature at this point, and we just don't know. So it's worth it. I think it's a good discussion to have. That could very well happen, but again, maybe it won't. I know I've talked to the board before about property tax raises. That really hasn't been discussed too much in the last 12 months. So, as I recall, I think Governor-elect Pritzker said he was against the property tax raise. So where does all that leave us? I think there's a lot of variables out there we just don't know the answers to at this point.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Mr. Bultmeyer.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson, President Shupai, and members of the board. We have a presentation on our proposed tax levy for 2018. Since it's the same board as last year when I did this, we'll go through some of the early slides a little quicker, but if anybody has any specific questions, feel free to stop me and we'll answer those questions at that time. We're going to cover some background about the levy. We'll talk about the tax levy calendar, how we calculated the tax extension, what we see as the value of the new growth within the district, and then the total proposed levy. Here in District 15, property taxes are roughly 77% of the district's overall revenue. When you hear us refer to tax extension, what we mean is the actual amount of total taxes that District 15 extends to the community. And when we are going through the process of calculating our levy, we are subject to the property tax extension limitation law, generally known as the tax caps, and it's not just Cook, it's, it applies to all the counties surrounding us in the Chicago region. So what does PTEL do? It basically limits our ability to increase the tax extension to an increase in last year's amount plus CPI, and then we can add on top of that any new growth within our community. As Mike showed, a little bit ago, we're historically been right at that 10 to 12 million per year. Last year was a little bit higher than what we've seen in quite a while at 20 million. The one thing I will point out, the way that the law is written as it relates to capturing CPI and new growth, if you don't take advantage of whatever is given to you in a given year, you can't go back and try and get it back. So if you don't capture everything that's part of CPI and new growth, you lose it forever. The debt service tax levies, outside of generally what I'm going to show you tonight, the county clerk takes our bond documents when the bonds are sold, and they do the calculation. There's nothing that we have to levy for on those. Here's a map of the history of PTEL around the state. As it shows, the Chicago region, was the earliest in the state. Some states have, voted against it, some for, and some just stayed silent on the topic. The tax levy calendar. So tonight we have to have a presentation on the estimate of the total taxes to be levied. Next month, then the board will need to adopt the final tax levy, and then by December 25th, the last Tuesday of the month, we have to file it with Cook County. This chart shows what CPI has been for the last 5 years and with the new growth within the community. I know Mike mentioned a little bit ago that through September it was at 2.4%. This morning they released the numbers through October. We're up to 2.6. Historically, the last 2 months, you drop a little bit. So I think, given the target of being at roughly 2%, in the last 2 years of being at 2.1, I would suspect that amount for next year's levy will end in somewhere in the twos. This chart shows how the relationship between each tax levy year and each budget year. Our budget mirrors our school year, our fiscal year. The tax levy covers a calendar year, so for every tax levy, we're actually covering parts of 2 different fiscal years. And so, for example, next month when we finalize the 2018 tax levy, we're already impacting our ability to calculate, what our and budget for the 1920 school year. Here's some key extension numbers. Last year we were at 122.5 million. Last year's EAV was 3.5 billion. Our assumption is that existing EAV will grow by 2%, which will bring up 3.6. We have 10% in there, or 10 million in there for new growth. That would bring us to 3.6 billion in EAV for next year's extension. This slide shows the formula for calculating the limiting rate. you just take the prior year extension times CPI. Now on the bottom of the formula, it's total EAV minus new construction. We are projecting that the limiting rate would be 3.45. This slide shows the key takeaway from here is looking at that third row, the 10 million. Once you've calculated that limited rate, you can then apply it to whatever your new growth is, whether it's 10 million or 15 or 20, and it creates a value for that new growth. So roughly, the way I read this slide is for every 10 million we see in new growth, we would get an additional 345,000 in revenue. This slide shows, roughly what, if we were to approve what has been proposed, what is being proposed tonight, next month, what's the impact on a property value of 200, 150? And you see in the far right column, based upon, what we're proposing, it's a very, very minimal impact. I will point out one thing just to keep in mind, and we'll probably remind the board next summer when the bills come out. There's been a lot of talk over the last year, especially in the Tribune. They've done those very in-depth pieces about the inequities in the assessment process and how certain communities, and I'll offer as a side, I live in the city, I live in Lakeview. My since we've bought our condo, we had been massively underassessed. So if you looked at the charts, and I've already looked at our data for next year, I'm personally going to see an assessment increase of about 40%. So the reason I bring that up is I know that the focus of that article really talked about the city, but they handle the assessment for the entire county. It may be a good talking point that if you hear any community members next summer when those final bills are issued, people will look back and say, well, I thought you guys said our bill was relatively staying the same, yet my bill went way up. Well, ultimately your bill is what is your proportion of the whole. So if you were massively underassessed, or I guess likewise if you were somebody who was overassessed and would see a decrease, it is possible that come next summer in the final bills, not everybody's just going to have a pretty steady final bill. This chart shows how we calculated the aggregate extension for the last 3 years, plus what we're expecting for the 2018. If you look at the far right column, last year was 122.5 million. Without any new growth, we would be up, and the 2.1% CPI would be up to 125.1, and then with the new growth, we're projecting 125.48. This slide just shows by fund last year's actual. The middle column is what we are estimating the extension to be. The far right column, where it says tax levy request, each of those amounts are higher. In the middle column where it says 125.48, that's what we're projecting once everything's finalized. However, because of the way the system works, and without knowing what the new growth is going to be, we have to balloon beyond the 2.1 to be able to capture that. So this year's levy request is set at 3.9%, which is the same as what we had done last year. And so that's what the last column on the right represents. Those are the ballooned amounts that, if approved next month, would be in our tax levy request to the county. And then once they finalize the amount of new growth and the limiting rate, they would reduce that down to something that would be similar to the 125.4. Any questions on that before I get to the next? Okay. So this is something that is new compared to last year. So if you remember, in February of 17, the district issued $8.725 million in life safety bonds. Now, one of the in your packet, there was a memo. There's a 2-page memo from our bond advisor, Liz Hennessy, that kind of explained. If you were to look at that memo in the far left column, there's a number called the debt service extension base. That number can grow by CPI every year. Our bond counsel when they were going through the issuance process, they take a conservative approach with all their clients, and in our case, would not put in the documents a CPI increase above 1.5%. Well, for 2018, the CPI came in at 2.1. So that allows the district to pass a resolution to do a supplemental debt service tax levy to capture the difference between that 1.5 and the 2.1, which comes out to roughly $118,000 per year. So, and the same thing would then apply to the 2019 tax levy. So, the reason we bring that forward is, as in Liz's memo, it shows that if we were to do nothing, that compared to the taxes that we collect for debt service, we would be about $425,000 short. We would have to use existing cash on hand in the debt service fund. If we were to pass it, that would be $118,000 for 18, and then possibly $118,000 for 2019. Then that would reduce the amount of cash on hand. And as she noted at the very bottom of that memo, we started about a year ago at this time with about $550 in fund balance in debt service, and then another month from now, once we make our December 1st bond payments, we would be at about $616,000 is what the estimate is. So if we did nothing, then that 425 would more or less wipe that out. So I'll offer one more thing before I explain a couple of the scenarios. Historically, and when we had done our recent life safety bond issues, one of the nice things about being able to have a little bit of cushion in the debt service fund is that when you're going through the issuance process, it allows our bond advisors to structure the principal and interest payments in a manner that's advantageous to the market. It also allows us to be able to pay interest payments right away. So, like in this case, we issued bonds in February. We made an interest payment already by like June 1st. Well, if you think about the levy process, you need significant lead time. We were able to use existing debt service funds on hand to make that payment. We've also in the last few years, we've used those reserves to make a small principal payment and then multiple interest payments. So if we decided not to do it, then debt service fund would basically be down to a couple $100,000. So the one scenario would be at next month's board meeting with the regular resolutions for the regular levy, we can have a resolution prepared to capture this additional $118,000, and then that would cover the 2018 levy only. Or another option is, if the board is interested, the supplemental debt tax levy does not need to be approved and filed. We have until the February board meeting. It has to be filed by the end of February. So one of the options that our advisor suggested, if the board was interested in just passing the resolution once and taking care of it for the 18 levy and the 19 levy, by the February board meeting, we would know what the final CPI is for this calendar year, so we'd be able to do it all at once. So those are really the scenarios. So whatever you guys would direct us to do, we will certainly do as it relates to this levy. Any questions?
So what's the benefit of waiting until February is you rely on the actual as opposed to 2.1?
Well, so for the 2018 tax levy year, we already know that the CPI is 2.1%. So we could go ahead and pass it for the 2018 levy, but if we waited until February, then we would know what the CPI factor is for the 2019 levy. Okay. And so you'd be able to basically pass one resolution, knock it out all at once, and then we wouldn't have to do it, because after 2019 levy year, the way our debt's structured and the way our debt service extension base is, the amount we're paying per year drops below what our maximum amount is, and so there's really no need for a resolution like this. So, either scenario whether we do one at a time or, both at the same time, doesn't matter. It's up to the board discretion.
Does it save you any work or any effort, Corey, or is it same?
I think as far as this, based upon our conversations with the advisor, at this point in time, really it's a matter of if the board's interested, we call Chapman and Keller to prepare the resolution. That's about it. So I think the answer is really
Gotcha.
So I think my recommendation would be wait until February. We can just do it one time for both of them. And, anytime in the future, if the board wanted to somehow rebate some debt service money to the taxpayers, they could. Right now, we still have a number of things we have to take care of in the building, and I think that it'd be prudent to capture this money and have it available to us.
Yeah, where the fund balances are, where the projections are in the 5-year budget, it makes sense to capture this and appropriately cover the debt service.
Yeah.
No? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Corey. Before I end my session, I just would be remiss if I didn't mention that we lost a staff member this last month between board meetings. Clerical aide at Central Road passed away, also a parent in the district, and the loss was felt pretty significantly, and so I just wanted to let you know that the organization, the family, is grieving a little bit for the loss of one of our staff members, Liz Belter. That's it for my section tonight.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion for the reading and acceptance of minutes, please?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the following meetings of the Board of Education: October 3rd, 2018 regular Board of Education meeting, and the November 5th, 2018 special Board of Education meeting and executive session as presented.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Iannarino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan,
I'm going to say aye for the October 3rd meeting and abstain for the November 5th meeting. I wasn't there.
You were not
Okay.
there.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Motion carries. Board discussion and reports. Ed Red, Frank?
Being that there were elections going on, there wasn't a whole lot, but one thing of note is that there is a veto session that's just started. And one thing that's kind of critical, you might want to contact your representatives on this, is the looking at overriding the requirement, the veto on the requirement for like 150, phys ed hours, which would kind of throw a monkey wrench in a lot of stuff. So
Which I didn't realize that 150 is a requirement even in a shortened
even in a
attendance
shortened
week.
week, yeah. So that's something that we really don't want, that veto overridden. So make some phone calls.
I sent a few emails out today. I've got a couple responses, and one of the representatives said that the sponsor of the bill didn't intend to bring it to the veto session. So I think we're in good shape there.
Good.
Wasn't there also a veto session on the teacher salary?
Yeah, but that doesn't really apply to us so much, so we don't really have to worry about that.
All right, thank you very much. Barb, 1-5 Foundation?
Nothing to report this month.
All right, Finance Committee? Dave, Anthony?
Nothing
No
to report.
updates.
Equity Committee? Is there
Nothing to report. I know that there was a poverty summit that I wasn't able to attend, but I know some of the staff members, some of the district members.
I went to
gone.
it and it was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, because I think it was specifically geared towards poverty in the suburbs, and from the last
Yes.
presentation, a lot of those factors are affecting our, equity situation in the district. So I'll, meet up with Dr. Edgar to
Yeah.
discuss that.
It was very well done, and really did a great job of giving some idea of just adjustments in poverty in the suburbs versus the city, and lack of services and infrastructure in the suburbs, which
To deal
makes
with
it
it, sure.
that much more impactful. Discussion of the Illinois Association of School Boards 2018 resolutions.
Yeah, so everyone got their packets on the various resolutions that are up in the conference this weekend. We could do it a number of ways. Either
you can designate to me the responsibility of deciding how our board votes on that. Or, of course, you can give me your suggestions. What we've done in the past is we've had board members kind of send to me the suggestion or how they would vote on certain things, and I've literally just tabulated it and voted based on everyone's vote. And if it was something I don't think I've ever had a time where it was like something in between. So, but either we can do it that way, so everyone just email me how they would vote on the various resolutions, or if you'd like, I could just vote it by myself on behalf of the board.
All right, when, is that Friday or Saturday?
Saturday.
Saturday? Yeah.
It's fine. We can email.
Hmm?
We can email you.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's fine. I was gonna say, I mean, they have the resolutions committee recommendations, and I think if we're not gonna vary from, I think the only ones we'd wanna talk about is if we're gonna vary from those. So
Yeah, I mean, so I guess, I've gone through them and I've pretty much adopted what
The recommendations.
what they've recommended. But we haven't always done it. There's been other years where
Right.
there's been an adoption that we went against.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I'd say if there's one that, I guess I'd give proxy unless you see a reason that we deviate, and then those are the ones we should probably discuss or vote on.
Yeah, and I don't see one at this point. I know there was a lot
I
of
didn't either.
about the safety issues that we've talked about in the past. There was 3 different suggestions. The one that they, recommended was, the one I would have adopted out of those 3.
Right.
Again, these are just things that they're going to be pushing for as a lobbying organization.
Yeah, yeah.
Fine.
And I agree with Dave. I'm pretty comfortable with the recommendations that were there.
Okay, fair enough. I will vote accordingly.
Okey-doke. Revised school calendar? Any discussion on the revised school calendar? I have one question.
Yeah.
Why the move out of the dates from where it was traditionally I want to say the 2 days in February, and then you bumped?
Come on up.
Yeah.
So thanks. We usually have a pretty consistent calendar year to year, but that doesn't mean we don't look at ways to improve that calendar. We've tried really hard to align with our 2 high school feeder districts, 211 and 214. And one date that's been inconsistent with those is the day after Christmas break, after winter break is over. They do not have students in session on those days, and we do. We thought that would be beneficial for the parents, especially when you share students between districts, elementary kids and high school kids, that would be beneficial for our parents. When we started talking about that, those days aren't institute days for us that we're looking at moving. We're trying to move what we call, they're student non-attendance days in the calendar, but they're actually our teacher plan days. So our certified staff are in. And when we started talking about that day, they said, that may be a really good day after a long break. We're all with family to regroup and get together as groups of teachers. It's the day that we're all the teachers are free to come together and plan. So they thought it'd be really beneficial, that would align with 211's calendar, with 214's calendar, and give us a time to really kind of revamp after that natural break in the year. That sparked the discussion of, well, maybe we should do that for the second plan day and try that in March. So that's where the conversation came up. We do have lots of requests from non-certified staff members in terms of travel. It's a high day that people ask to have personal days off because of family obligations. They're not in school on those days because there are no students. So we thought that might benefit not only our families but our staff as well. That was the impetus for the recommendation for the change.
So you took the day from October and moved it to January, the one from February, and the post-spring break.
Correct. And then you'll see on the following year, the proposal is to leave that January day consistent as our high school district, but then take the March date and move it, because that's a presidential election year, and move it to the election day, so schools would not have students in attendance. That is something that we kind of revisit because many of our schools are election sites, and there's just a higher voter turnout on those years, so we wanted to put that where students aren't in the building.
Okay.
So you mentioned that the breaks align with 211. You moved the start date the start and end dates moved as well in the 2019-20, is that correct?
Yeah, you know, and then I think there was a mistake from last year. We always start, shouldn't say always, but for quite some time, the second Monday of the month of August, and that's where 211, 214 are as well. To
Oh,
make
so this
the
was just a
mistake.
correction,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
It wasn't an intentional
Yeah.
change?
And
Okay.
it's really just how those weeks fall, because when you'll see the following calendar,
It's really early.
it looks really early because of how the weeks fall. Does make the students get out before Memorial Day, gives us a little cushion. That last day of the school year is always a little tricky because it's so close to Memorial Day, and you know, it's a shot if we take a snow day or not. You know, you never know if that's going to happen, and the optics of thinking you're out before Memorial Day and then adding that one snow day that puts you after, which and never seems to go over well with parents or staff members. So this year, the 1920 school year, it's that day after. There's a good likelihood we'll probably go to Wednesday or Thursday anyway. But the following year, I think we're in good shape
want you
for
to play
ending
weatherman.
before Memorial Day.
The following year,
Yeah.
even with snow days, we should still
we
be
should be good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
the
I
19.
think my last year I got to call snow days. I'm a hero with kids. When I
Oh.
Yeah.
But the parents and staff, not so much.
That's right.
You should just call one, everybody looks outside and goes, it's beautiful out. Yeah, because I don't love the calendar that ends on that Tuesday
I know.
without snow days, because it's just such a dangler. You get people that sort of, even if it's not there, will, you know, preemptively plan vacations when they shouldn't and things like that.
Right.
But it's
Yep.
it's the reality of the calendar.
Thank you, that makes a lot more sense now. All right, so, and we vote on that next month, right? The calendar?
Yep.
But
Okay.
one
Discussion, right?
one other question, Lisa, real quick. The May Institute Day and the other day in 2021, is that, and some of it's the calendar, but is that significantly later than normal, or is that, because I thought typically that would fall back into April.
It's typically the first weekend of May.
It's the first week of May, but that's really
Right.
late in May. I mean, it's, the calendar shifts so that it's
Right, we also don't.
it's
go to
usually
school
off right
normally,
before,
like,
we're usually off right
2
before
weeks after.
Derby,
Right.
and this pushes it to the second weekend. Just saying.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
It's the frame of reference I have, so I always know where it is in the calendar.
Usually the first Thursday in May is where we target it.
Okay.
And I think that it's the first. The first is Friday this year, but then the first being Sunday shifts that week.
Right. Okay. It's just weird calendar. How the calendar falls is very unusual next year, I think. Okay.
Any other comments on the calendar? The board policy, it's the first reading on school wellness. Any conversation? Concerns, issues? Neither. Superintendent's Communication Committee.
We did not meet, so there's no report.
All right, we will now open our meeting for public comment. Please remember, this is not a dialogue between you and the board. If you have a specific issue which requires a response, Superintendent Thompson will get back to you promptly. Please state your name and identify any group that you represent and limit your remarks to no more than 5 minutes. If someone has already articulated something in which you agree, say you agree and move on. And finally, avoid any comments specific to any person, student, parent, or staff member, respecting that person's right to privacy. The Rosella Bartoli. Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson and school board members. My name is Rosella Bartoli, and I'm a program assistant in District 15 and a co-vice president of the Educational Support Personnel Union. I make it a habit to look at the board meeting agenda and attachments on a monthly basis and read the minutes, and I look at the videos afterwards, so I'm very happy to hear that we will be streaming live now. When I saw that you were going to talk about retired police officers being armed district employees, I felt a need to be part of that conversation. I do not own a gun, but I have gone shooting with trained gun owners at the range, and I have an extremely healthy respect for guns. I must tell you that the only safe gun around children is an unloaded gun. The only effective gun against armed intruders is a loaded gun. They don't go together. Guns do not belong in elementary schools, especially when you say that these people will be clericals and secretaries. They'll be typing, they'll be copying, they'll be taking lunch orders from children, they'll be dealing with ill children. How are they going to be on point, seeing what's going on, and be ready to act? I was going to say that I urge you not to consider this, but since you're moving forward in the spirit of transparency, I would urge you to talk to the unions, the non-union employees, the parents, and the community before you act on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I very much appreciate your commentary. Anita Jamnik? Am I close on your last name?
Yes, you are right on.
Nice.
Good evening, President Shupai, Dr. Thompson, and board members. My name is Anita Jamnik, and I'm an employee of District 15. I'm a member of the Educational Support Association, and I've lived in the district for 26 years. My kids attended District 15 schools, and all the time I've been involved with District 15, I've never felt that our schools were unsafe. We live in a time when everyone needs to be aware of their surroundings, and the chance of violence is really a reality regardless of the venue. Despite this climate, guns do not belong in our elementary schools. Our office staff have a multitude of responsibilities and care very deeply for their children in their charge. The chance for accidental discharge of a firearm in a school, in my opinion, is far too high a risk and outweighs any benefit of having that gun in the building. Some of the parents of the Parkland shooting victims in Florida expressed that having an armed person in the building would not have saved their kids. Our schools are relatively safe, and guns should not be a part of any plan for additional safety measures in our elementary schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your opinion. All right, next up, action items. Item 18, 11, 20, the personnel report. May I have a motion, please? Motion?
I make a motion to approve the November 14, 2018 personnel report, including the following recommendations. Recommendation for disciplinary action, 1 day unpaid suspension for Roberta Desprat. Recommendation for disciplinary action, 1 day unpaid suspension of Susanna Guevara. Recommendation for disciplinary action, 1 day unpaid suspension of Maribel Lewis. Recommendation for disciplinary action, 3 day unpaid suspension of Renee Neary. Recommendation for disciplinary action, 5 day unpaid suspension of Kevin Shape. And the recommendation for termination of Naga Padma Ravella as recommended.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Anarino.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 18, 11, 21. Motion, please.
I make a motion to approve resolution estimating the aggregate levy for the year 2018 as presented.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll
Kane.
call.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Anarino,
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 18, 11, 22. Motion, please.
I make a motion to award the contract for the Univent's time and materials bid 19-007 to General Mechanical of Roselle, Illinois, in the amount of $20,825 as recommended.
Second.
Second.
Discussion?
I just had one question. Mike, are we confident that they understand the scope of work? I mean, the estimate was dramatically different than the other ones, and it was really driven by the hours estimated versus just the cost. So I just want to make sure we're comfortable that it's...
Yeah, we are for two reasons. So we actually, when we had some complaints at that building, so we actually had that company do the first few rooms up to the $25,000 just under that we did more of the roof for. And we issued the bid, and we had a walkthrough the project. So,
Okay.
so everybody that bid had a walkthrough. They all walked through at the same time, and everybody knew exactly what the scope of the project
Okay.
We've worked with them in the past, so they should be very workable here.
Yeah, I'm comfortable if we feel like the other ones are probably overinflated and this is reasonable, but it's,
I'm honestly surprised that there was that much of a difference.
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Right. Just wanted to make sure we didn't take it and then have a
And then
surprise
get
on a
a, change
change
order
order
after,
later.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, roll call?
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 18, 1123, motion please.
I make a motion to award the contract for the PA system upgrades bid 19-009 to ITR Systems, Downers Grove, Illinois, in the amount of $153,740 as recommended. The award is based on the lowest vendor meeting bid specifications.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 18, 1124, motion please.
Make a motion to approve the Manville Construction, Ingleside, Illinois change orders in the amount of $92,296 as recommended. It is noted that the amount of the change orders exceeds 10% of the original contract value and qualifies under the emergency exception due to the timeliness of the work's completion, thus not allowing a sufficient time period for a bidding cycle.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Can you just provide a little context of what was, there was like the one item that was
do.
the big driver, the undercuts.
It was the cut. So what happens is when we bid out the parking lot, we strip off the old parking lot, and because the soil is beneath it, we don't know what the status of that soil is until we can actually pull up the asphalt. So they keep going down, we call them cuts, until they can get to a solid surface. And $73,000 of that was because of all the activities that we had to do to get down to a good level that we could finally put the new asphalt on, so that it would crumble. And then to make it all stick together is an additional binder patch, which you put the binder patch in before you put the top level of the asphalt on. So most of it was the cuts, just being so
Right.
sure. The underlying soil was bad. We don't know what that is until we can take the open parking lot.
And when we estimate these and approve them initially, we have the contingencies in there. So how much,
So we'll put a 10% contingency in on that. So state law says you can't go over 10%. So the only way to do that, you'd have to stop the project and put it out. But there's no way we could do that because that's over the summer, and then we would not be able to school. So the provision is if it's considered an emergency project, which it is because we have to get school.
Absolutely.
Then we process the change orders and bring it to the board.
so is the 92 beyond the contingency amount?
It's beyond the, yes, that's, so we had the base bid, the 10% contingency, and the 92,000 was over and above both those amounts.
Almost 3 times, so it
Yeah.
would have been, the 10%
Yeah.
would have been 38,900.
Yeah, this one was really,
Right.
okay.
I will say one in another district I was at, the cost of a parking lot at a high school doubled because of that same amount. The bid was 500,000. This is years ago. We ended up spending $1 million on a parking lot because of the same conditions that we had.
And they can't core that, Mike, or there's no way of?
If I remember right, we asked them to expand the parking lot bigger than than it was last year, and it was the new area primarily that was the problem, wasn't it, Mike?
Yeah, I'd have to double check with Craig that could be.
Yeah, I think
And we did expand a lot.
we expanded a lot, and it was the area where you wouldn't anticipate it being any different than the other area, but it was.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Further discussion? Roll call?
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 18, 1125, motion please.
Make a motion to ratify membership into the National Intergovernmental Purchasing Alliance, NIPA, and authorize the chief school business official to execute the Master Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchasing Agreement from NIPA as recommended.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Have we been in this prior?
No, we've not entered into that prior. The NIV funding is actually here, our purchasing coordinator. A lot of districts, surrounding districts actually participate in this.
Yeah.
And,
Is NIPA, is it the same as NPA?
So
Okay, thanks, Effie.
I just will say, we worked with HR on this, and they reviewed the documents, so that it's permissible for us to enter into that. So then by the district entering into that, some of the bids that we do, like for furniture, it's already been bid out to the cooperative, so we
Yep.
can avoid going through the process.
Okay. Any other questions? Roll call?
Wong,
Aye.
Anarino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye, motion carries. Would anyone like to remove anything from the consent calendar?
Was there another item in the original that came out? Another purchase order? Where there was only one bidder? I swear I had a question on one that I don't.
Yeah, it was earlier. Yeah.
Like from Monday, that was in the original, the draft packet? No?
No.
Okay, I'm imagining things.
It's getting late.
I swear there was one where they were like, we put it out to bid, but there was only one or two that responded.
Yeah, that was the one with the.
Oh, that
Daily
was the
Herald.
PA system?
Yeah, the Daily
Okay.
Herald.
Got it.
Earlier on.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Consent calendar? Any removals?
No.
May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as it stands?
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar as it stands.
Okay, second?
Second.
Roll call?
Anarino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Motion carries. Correspondence?
There were 2 requests and 2 responses for information under the Freedom of Information Act during the period of September 27th through November 8th. On October 1st, 2018, a request was received from Pat Noonan, Carpenters Local 185. The response to this request was sent on October 9th. On October 1st, a request was received from Bethany Simpson, Smart Procure. The response to this request was sent on October 26th. And we received 3 checks from developers for impact fees. One from the Village of Palatine, amount of $1,518.13. 2 from the Village of Hoffman Estates, one in the amount of $23,441.42, and another in the amount of $74,767.90.
Great. That's it. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.